So this morning we're going to cover this concept of Ruby modules. What's a module? What's a class? How are the two related? Again, we were supposed to cover this yesterday. I just ran out of time. I'm going to make a directory called Ruby modules and cd inside of this, open it up in Sublime. So a Ruby module, the formal definition, module example. So a Ruby module, the formal definition is a grouping of objects under a single name. So again, the formal definition is a grouping of objects under one singular name. But in reality, there's two ways to use Ruby modules. The first one is to namespace your classes. Let's do that one later. Let's create two different classes. We're going to go back and do a quick overview. So let's call this person.rb. And I have a class called person. Every single person has certain attributes that they get right away. So definitionalize. And somewhere down here, I'm going to create a person equals person.new. Let's say 3 traits that every single person has. Height. Weight.
And
first name. Sure. I'm going to put first name first. Now, when I pass in, let's say I am John, I am, we'll just do it in inches, 71 inches tall, and I weigh 180 pounds. This is me. When I pass these things in, inside of this method here, I can do whatever I want with first name, height, and weight. Because I'm passing it in, and these are local variables, it exists within this particular context. I'm going to be doing other things with this particular person, and I'm going to need to access these particular attributes. I'm going to be using instance variables to do this. So at first name equals first name. Just by putting the @ sign in the front, I'm able to use it within this method and every other method within my class. Same things here. I'm just going to do this real quick. And then just change this to weight. I'm going to also make all of these things different attributes, readers and writers and things like that. So my first name, I guess, what are things that can change and what are things that cannot change? I guess technically all of these things can change. So I'm just going to do adder accessor for all of these. First name, height, and weight. My height doesn't really change though, does it? Oh, as a person, it changes over time. And when you get older, like my dad used to be my height, now he's like 5'8" because do older people like shrink or something like that? Or, yeah. It's unfortunate. What are things that every person can do? So maybe one is called tell me about yourself. That's something that every person can do in some way. So maybe I'll say puts hello. I am first name. I am height, inches tall, and weight, pounds. All right. What are some other things that every single person can do? Let's do 2 things. Walk. Probably not. I'm not even kidding. There are certain, like, we'll talk more about this on on Wednesday, but like the ADA is like one of like the Americans with Disabilities Act is a huge deal inside of technology as well. Like if you have like all these big conferences and it's not wheelchair accessible, like it's not going to be, you're definitely going to get sued. So maybe, okay, everyone has the ability to poop.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something that everyone's going to be able to do. Consume food. Yeah. So these are things that every single human being can do. So when I call this here, I'm just going to do maybe person.tell me about yourself, and then every single person is able to poop and consume food. So person.poop and consume food. When I run this, I expect this first thing to output, hello, I am John, I'm 71 inches tall and weigh 180 pounds. And then this is just going to print out the word poop and yum. So when I list out everything, and uh-oh, did I save this in the wrong place? I did. Not again. Hello, I'm John, 71 inches tall and weigh 180 pounds, poop and yum, just like this. So we're familiar with classes. We've been dealing with it for the past week. Now there's this concept of what's called a Ruby module. And a Ruby module is a way that we can mix in different methods between one module and several different classes. Now this particular person is, like, every single person has the ability to do these three things right over here. But there are certain things that only at certain points that you're going to have the ability to do that you're not going to have the ability to do later. So I'm going to create what's called a teenager module.rb. Now a teenager, since it's an instance of class, and a teenager is really a person, but they have certain methods and attributes and things like that that only exist within the teenage years, right? So I'm going to create what's called a module teenager and end. You can think of a module as just one giant bucket. It's just a giant bucket. One of the ways that you can think about it is one giant bucket full of methods. What are things that teenagers can do that normal people cannot do? What's that? Acne. Sure. We'll say I'm a teenager and I have much more acne than other ages. Like, these are things that are specific to teenagers, not necessarily on every single person. Like, this is just a collection of things that a teenager can do. So I have teenagers have acne. Teenagers give sass much more than any other group of people. I'm sassy. I don't know, Rod, you have teenagers. What are things that teenagers do that you're like, wow, are these people human or not?
They can listen to unusually high pitch.
Okay.
True. But after as you get older, you can't.
Yeah, that's very true.
That is true. They also have complete knowledge of the world, which only experienced teachers. But certainty about their own level of knowledge peaks around 60.
Yeah, I guess that's right. So there are many things that teenagers can do that we all remember when we were teenagers that we thought, I thought going to the mall was the cool thing. I thought being mean to your mom was a cool thing. You know, it's like you wanted to be seen as the tough person at school and you were mean to your mom. I was like, that's a terrible way to go about life. But let's say that a teenager has these particular things. Now, what you'll notice about these three methods is that they don't rely on anything else. I don't have to initialize with anything. There are no variables that I'm looking for. It's just a bucket of giant of methods that don't rely on anything, just in one file. At any given time, yeah.
That is what a module is. It should.
Modules are two things. I'm going over the first one.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, from your point, it should not rely.
It should not rely on anything else. Okay. It should have zero dependencies. Like, you can see, if I was using at first name over here, I might mix the teenager into person. I might mix teenager into something else, like another class. Maybe this also works with animals, right? Adolescent animals are more sassy and growing up and go through fits of, they have more energy than older dogs or something like that, right? They can also hear, maybe teenage dogs can also hear higher pitches than older dogs or something like that. So you can see here, up until I added line 3, it was just a bunch of methods that didn't rely on anything. The moment I throw stuff like this, it might break. We don't know if the teenage dog has a first name that I can access like this. So I have got this class person, and they're able to do all of these three things. Let's comment that out for a second. I want this person now, let's say I actually have been the same height and weight since I was a teenager, so this also does work. Let's say that I want to have acne. I do not want that anymore. That was a terrible time. I want to have acne. if I have a separate module and a class like this, what I need to do is include teenager inside of this class. By this one tiny little line, include teenager, what I'm doing is basically taking everything out of the module here and copying and pasting it into this one line on line 2. So now with this one class, one module called include teenager, I also have the ability to do acne, sass, and listen to high pitches. So I'm going to comment this out and just run it for now. Obviously, this will break on line 25 because there's no method called acne within class person. So I'm run Ruby person.rb. It's broken, line 25, because there's an undefined method called acne. I'm going to include teenager at this particular point. And because teenager is not defined in this file, I need to require relative for teenager. So I added just 2 lines. I've defined a bunch of extra methods here on teenager and run Ruby person. And before where it broke, I can say I'm a teenager and I have much more acne than other ages. I have the ability to mix in all of these extra methods inside of this class with just this one line called include teenager. If this were like something that's easily reusable in other places, like every single adolescent animal in some way is going through a growth spurt, right? They're going to grow up in some way. So if there were methods that are common to other classes, like a dog, I could also just have a class dog and then include teenager, and then that class dog has access to all of these methods as well. Let's say, let's do one more example of this. So let's create a high schooler.rb. Every single high schooler has a first name and a school name, sure. At first name equals first name, and then at school name is going to equal school name. Def, tell me about yourself. I am first name, and go to school name. Because I've called it like this, first name and school name, let's just make them both readers for now. First name and school name. So I'm going to have h equals high schooler.new. Marvin, what was the school name that you went to?
Thornwood.
Thornwood. All right, and then let's say ph.tell me about yourself. So I just have another class. It's fairly simple. Like I had a person class before. Now I just have a high schooler class. Takes in 2 arguments, the first name and school name, and just prints out. They have one method called tell me about yourself. I'm Marvin, and I go to Thornwood. Let's rewind 10 years and Ruby high schooler.rb. I'm Marvin, and go to Thornwood. Now, Marvin's also a teenager. He's a high schooler, but he's also a teenager. At this point, I can either copy and paste all of these things, like Marvin, when he was a teenager, probably had acne, gave sass, and can listen to high pitches. I can either copy and paste all of this code inside of here and just do this, but then I'm repeating myself twice. So instead of repeating myself, I can get rid of all this, require relative of this particular file, and then simply just do include teenager. And then Marvin also has the ability to do all of these things just by including this teenager module. h.acne, h.givesass, h.listen to high pitches. Let's just see this run, and everything works. Marvin?
So this is just behavior, but in the problem yesterday, it said put a class in the module.
Yep, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Yep. So this is the first use of a module. There's 2 uses inside of Ruby. The first one is just, I have a module which is just a giant container full of methods that I can kind of import or include in any given class. Before, high schooler only had 2 things available to it. Now it has 5 things available to it. That's Very simple. This is what a module is. That's part one. The more challenging one for people to grasp is part number two. So I'm going to do, let's do outer space. Let's call this module example. All right, let's say we have the force of gravity, class gravity, and then depth initialize, and the force of gravity on Earth is 9.8 meters per second, meaning that you start off at 9.8 meters per second. Every corresponding second after that increases by 9.8 meters. That's how much faster you're going to hit the ground. Now, the issue with this right now is what's the gravity for Mars or for the moon, right? I don't actually know all of these things, but right now the class gravity, I've hard-coded the force of gravity to be 9.8. This is not always the case. It's just the case for us here on Earth. But the sun has different gravity, the moon has different gravity, Mars has different gravity. So when we go back to our original formal definition of a Ruby module, the formal definition is it's a grouping of objects under a single name. So what you would do is you would probably just use this to namespace your classes. This is when a module is basically used as a container for objects. So instead of maybe having a class called gravity and hard coding it just to Earth right here, I might want to do something like this. I'm going to have a module called gravity, and then within there I'm going to have class Earth, def initialize, at force of gravity equals 9.8. Inside of there I can also have other classes. So same thing, class the moon. I'm just going to copy a bunch of this a whole bunch of times. The moon and Mars. The moon actually has 1.6 gravity, 1.8 meters per second, and then Mars is 3.7. So we actually weigh the most here on Earth as compared to the moon and Mars. Before, when I was trying to call gravity, it would be like G equals gravity.new. But then it's only hard-coded to 9.8. By namespacing it like this, the class Earth, Moon, and Mars are namespaced under gravity because the only thing I'm worried about is their force of gravity. So I can, this is how I would write it, gravity, : Earth.new. So instead of just doing gravity.new or Earth.new, I do gravity, : Earth.new. The gravity is the module that surrounds the Earth class. So it's a little bit easier to read. So it's like the gravity of Earth, this is like gravity of Earth. And then if I wanted to do other things, I would have the gravity of the moon. Maybe I have the gravity of Mars. But you can kind of see it's all kind of nested underneath that namespace of gravity so that you have a better idea. Michael?
What does the colon do?
It tells your Ruby interpreter that Earth is not a class that exists by itself. It exists within the context of gravity. I can actually have an Earth class on the outside of, like I could have another class outside of here, but because it's not namespace under gravity, it's not the same thing. Yeah, Sean?
But like if you're gonna export this, like I know you're gonna use export. If you're gonna save this, it's gonna be a file named gravity, right? Like,
yeah, it'd be called gravity.rb, and then you can call gravity Earth as a class. You can do gravity moon as a class, gravity school, it's not school, Mars as a class. Another way to think about this, let me comment this all out, is something that might be a little bit more relevant to people. Let's say that you work at a bank, all right? And I'm just gonna call this, every single bank that is full of accounts, right? So I could do maybe def initialize, owner name, type of account, account number. Are these able to be read, written, or both? Owner name.
Right.
Nope. Get married and change your name.
Well, okay.
Add or accessor. Owner name. Type of account.
Red.
Red. Good. I like that one. All right, and the account number, I'm pretty sure also remains the same. I'm not sure you could change your account number, otherwise I'd find Bill Gates as one, and I'll just change my stuff to his. So I have this particular account right here. So let's say I have A equals account.new. The owner's name is John. The type of account is a checking account, and the account number is 123. Let's say we have a whole bunch of other methods inside of here. Right now, this is not like, it's not like, account is fairly ambiguous, right? The name of the class is fairly ambiguous. You have to look inside the class to find out exactly what type of account that it is. Because it's so ambiguous, maybe I want to create something else. Maybe I have one called checking account, then I have another one called savings account, and that's totally legitimate. Maybe I'll have one particular class that says checking account and one other class that has savings account. That's one way of doing things. The other way that I've seen is something like this. I'm going to have a module called account, and then within there I'm going to have a class called checking, and then I'll have another class called savings. Within this, I'm going to have initialize with an owner name and an account number. And then same thing down here. I'm going to have an initialize with the owner name and the account number. And type of account goes away. Type of account goes away. So again, one way of writing it is class account, where I pass in the type of account. This is a legitimate way of doing it. Another way that you could go about this is with a checking account. You can name it just like this, a class checking account, and then a class savings account. You know exactly what you're dealing with at that particular point. The final way of doing it is this way. I have a module called account, and within there I have a class called checking and a class called savings. The way I would call this is account checking.new with the owner name John and the account number of 123. It's 3 different ways of doing the exact same thing. One of them will make more sense to you. I just want to present this as I just wanted to present this so that when you see the colon and you're not sure what it is, or you see a module wrapping around a class, this is what they're doing. They're just namespacing it, saying that this particular class called checking, because checking, you're talking about a checking account, a checking like ATM card, or you check like a checking, I'm not sure what checking means. But when I namespace it under an account, there's no doubt here. It's an account, it's a checking account. This is just 3 ways of writing the exact same thing. Sean?
Is there there's 2 things. Firstly, is there a best practices for how people construct these things? Like when they construct modules that are full classes versus classes that are individual? Is there
I do not see a lot of this. But I do see it sometimes. So my main thing would be this. Like if I'm going to have like a checking account and a savings account behave differently, right? So I don't want to just smash everything together into one giant class called account and then differentiate based off of whatever I pass in. It's also kind of dangerous because it's like I can just say like this is an investment account by accident, or like this is a CD, or this is a an IRA or something like that. I like this middle one right here the most, because then there's no doubt of what I'm talking about. But I'm just
Did you have that on its own file?
Yes, all of these would be under its own file. I'm just putting this for brevity.
That's how it sort of makes sense to my mind, because it's like making it squared away. Here's that one,
Yeah, that's right.
One other question though, this is like super particular. Like, when you go to create a new hash or object or whatever you're going to create out of this new instance of a class, like this is just, I want to understand the next step, right? We're doing it in memory, right? Like, and so you stop running that file, it's gone. It dies, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're working towards this database idea, right? Like I see how that's emerging, but like one of the things that because I'm looking at JSON all the time now, like is it normal that one would create a new class and not give it an actual name upon creation, but actually just write out that class like new and stick it somewhere? Do you get my point? Like,
No.
Okay.
Yeah. We might want to take this one offline, but
Okay.
I think I can answer your question. I just don't know what it is, and I don't want to do that. So one thing, and then I'll get to you, John. Right now, like I did want to mention that Sean says that these objects are just existing in memory. So when I run the program, like, and I run it that one time, this particular, I'll just put a binding prior real quick and show you. Oh no, there's so much stuff, so much garbage. John, do you have a question? Let me.
Yeah.
Sure.
I define my classes like you're looking at right now,
Mhm.
and then in the module I just set the class equal. I just set a variable with the same name as a class equals to : that class name, and it worked. I was able to create classes just by.
So you had a : without any word in the front, so it's not like account : checking.
Inside
It was just
of the module
Yeah.
bank, I had variable name like account with a capital, like the regular case you use, equals : account, and then I was able to call it by doing bank : account.
Yep.
Is this a good thing to do?
No. No, you generally want to namespace it like that, like it's like, so nobody understands what : something is, right? But it's like that exists. That's saying I have a class that exists within an unnamed module.
I'm calling it by saying bank. Like
Bank : I thought you said
I
bang :
but I defined it inside of bank by saying variable name equals : account, but I'm still able to call it.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just not very common, but it's fine. Yeah. I'm going to do one thing, Sean, and I'll show you. So Sean said these things exist inside of memory. So let's just run this for now. So list everything, Ruby module example, and I've hit this prior right over here. Let's take a look at when he says it exists inside of memory, meaning that somewhere on my machine at 0 times whatever this thing here, this is where this particular account lives. It lives only at this particular point. It lives inside my computer's memory. Now let's memorize this. I'm just going to copy it for now. I'm going to exit. I'm going to run the thing one more time. When I take a look at A again, you can kind of see that the place that it lives in memory is slightly different now. It's at a different location. What we're working towards is next week, we're going to create these things inside of memory, these objects, and then we're going to save them inside of the database so they live on forever. Because every single time that I exit right now, it's being written into, every single time I run it, it creates an object in memory, and when I close it, that place disappears. I'll never get that again. And that's not necessarily what I want all the time. So next week, we're going to create this, and it's actually going to be saved inside of a database so that it lives on forever. Sean?
There's something.
Okay.
Super technical.
Cool. You and I can talk a little bit later. Let's do bank accounts for 42 minutes, and then we'll stop. We'll take it as far as humanly possible. I have not done this in a very long time, so if I get something wrong, forgive me.
Oh, this is actually has to do with what we're talking about.
Sure.
So like, it is a very good idea, or at least common idea, that your module would either be a class or a list of methods.
Yes,
Like
that is
good,
100%
solid
accurate.
way of building things.
Yes.
Okay.
So a module is either a giant bucket full of methods, like we were talking about that include teenager, or it is a way to namespace your variables. So let's take a look at bank accounts. We'll go work on this for no more than 40 minutes, and then we'll call it. So bank accounts. Today's focus is object-oriented design. We're going to be working with the concept of bank accounts in order to explore more OO code as well as a few other topics. Learning goals, number 1, create a class inside of a module. Hopefully this makes more sense now that I was able to actually teach it. Create methods inside the class to perform actions, and learn how Ruby does error handling. Number 1, create a bank module, which will contain your account and any future bank logic. Fairly simple, we'll just stop right there. Inside of support, there we have a bunch of other things inside of here. Looks like we're going to be writing stuff over here. First things first, create a file. What is it called? Bank module, which will contain my class account. So bank.rb. First things first, module bank. And I believe that it's supposed to hold my account class and any future bank logic. All right, so class account. I don't know what's going to be in there, but we'll take a look at it a little bit later. An account class should have the following functionality. A new account should be created with an ID and an initial balance. So what does that mean? Is that in the initialize? Is that like a parameter that you're passing in? What is that?
There should be an initialized, it just says it should be an initial ID.
Yeah, every single, when you go to the bank, when you go to Chase Bank and you say, I want to open up a checking account, they will give you, when they enter you in the system, they will give you a number and they will say, what's your initial balance? So def initialize, account number, and initial balance. I know I'm probably going to need to do this later, so I'm just going to do it now. Initial balance equals initial balance. Initial balance. Oh, it doesn't, maybe it's not even, oh, whatever, initial balance. Is an account number something you write, read, or both?
Read.
You're going to overwrite your account number?
Oh, no, the actual number, never mind. No.
Add a reader for account number, and the initial balance. The initial balance is it read. Yeah. I don't know if I'm digging myself into a hole here, but we'll find out. All right.
Are you going to be pulling this stuff out of the CSV file?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get as far as I can with this. So it's going to be the Ruby modules and reading and writing to a CSV.
I did the same thing. It's just like a refactor. You probably don't even have to change the class stuff for the refactor. You just put the CSV lines.
Yep, I'm pretty sure that's the case, yeah. All right, so this account should have a withdraw method that accepts one single parameter, which represents the amount of money that will be withdrawn. This method should return the updated account balance. So I see a few things here. I'm just going to copy and paste all of this so we don't have to go back and forth. This first one says we should have a withdraw method. Fairly simple. Def withdraw. Done. It accepts a single parameter. Dang it. All right. So we have an amount to withdraw. This method should return the updated account balance. So this line right here, it's fairly simple. Like somehow I have to do just like balance minus equals amount to withdraw. But I have to figure out like what's the balance? You know what I mean? Like I have to create some sort of method for a balance.
Yeah. Check balance.
What's that?
Check balance.
Maybe I could do a check balance. Like where would you, like how would you structure this? This is one of those open-ended questions. Like you can do a check balance if you want. Another way I was thinking is just do at balance equals initial balance, because when I first create it, that's like if I put $200 in, my balance is $200, right. And it's going to be updated and removed overall. So I'm going to go with this.
So we need to change that to an accessor.
Yeah, I need to change it to an accessor because this is going to be read and written. So I have a balance, amount is just going to withdraw money. I should have a deposit method that does the same thing, but just return the updated balance. Same thing as before, but instead of minus equals, it's going to be plus equals. Hold on one second, I need to tell someone I'm not going to be able to make a call. Danny, if you're watching this, sorry that I missed your call. All right, so def deposit, amount to deposit. Fairly simple so far, right? So we create an account. We initialize it with a number and initial balance. We set the overall balance to be this, and then we're going to be reading and writing to it. If we withdraw a certain amount of money, we subtract that from the balance, and it's reflected everywhere. And when we deposit money, we add that to the balance, and that's reflected everywhere. And we should be able to access the balance of an account at any time. Fairly simple. I think we just did it. We have an adder accessive for balance. When we first create the class, the balance is set to the initial balance, and we can update. And I think we can call this outside of it. Sean?
Do we need validation?
We can, but I'm not going to do validations until we get to databases. Oh, you mean like what? Should we make sure that it's not a string? Like
there's that. There's also like just to make sure the value is not put in a value so that it's greater than 0.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah, I think that's where they're going with error handling. A new account cannot be created with an initial negative balance. This should raise an argument error and leverage those Googling skills. Like we didn't teach this one. There's just not enough time for the day for me to teach everything. So when I first create a bank account, I can't owe money to the bank, right? The smallest amount I can ever owe is 0. So we're gonna maybe we'll have some driver code. B equals bank account dot new. Maybe the account number is 123 and the initial balance is -5. When I do this, it says I expect you to raise some sort of error. So I'm not sure how to do that. It just says raise an argument error. So I'm just going to Google that. Raise argument error Ruby. I'm brought to my Google search page. There's a lot of stuff on here. This first one looks slightly promising, so we'll click on that one. Okay, look at this. So it says transfer money in amount. Unless the amount that you pass in, so whatever you pass in over here, is a number, I'm going to raise an argument error, and that it's going to say only numbers are allowed. So it seems to be fairly simple. The first thing I'm going to do is raise argument error. Is that what they did? Raise argument error dot new. You must provide a positive balance if the initial balance is less than 0. So this is just a small little validation check that I have. If you can't go to the bank and say like, I'd like to open my bank account with -$5, right? That's not going to happen. So I also want to check that on the code side. So I'm going to raise an argument error. You must provide a positive balance if your initial balance is less than 0. So this should blow up. It should say something, and we'll see if this happens. List out everything. Ruby bank.rb. Clear the screen just for more room. Boom, it blows up. It says, you must provide a positive balance. So it does not allow me to go any further if I create something with a negative balance. If I just do 5, I should not see this error, and nothing happens. It doesn't blow up. So I'm starting to protect my code against bad people doing bad things to it. Next thing down the line, the withdraw method does not allow the account to go negative. It should output a warning message and return the original unmodified balance. So if I have, this actually does not happen in real life, unfortunately. But let's say I got $500 in my checking account and I want to buy an iPhone X and I swipe my debit card. I can't withdraw money that I don't have. Well, I can. It's called overdraft, but you get hit with a bunch of fees. But I don't want to get hit with this, so I want to have a check against it. Using what I've done here on line 7, can somebody tell me what to write here on the withdraw method?
You can just say new line. Raise argument error dot new, and then you can just say you don't have enough money.
You do not have enough money.
And then we say if if balance is balance minus, what would it be? Balance minus amount to withdraw.
I almost agree. So
Also-
your balance is always going to be less than.
What are
I-
you,
Oh,
What
okay.
am I'm trying to make sure I don't have $0, right? I'm
Right.
trying to make sure I don't go negative. So how do I check that I'm not going to go negative?
If balance minus amount to withdraw
Mm-hmm.
is less than 0.
would it be a good idea to create a method for this and then just apply it?
I like it. So can you repeat that a little bit louder for the
So
recording?
wouldn't it have been a good idea to just create a method and then just apply it?
Yeah.
when you need it?
I like it. So we can do the calculation right here. It's totally legitimate. But if it's something but it's a little easier to read sometimes if you have already written a method. So Sean, tell me what to write. You said you wanted to create a method that basically is negative, right?
Yeah, I just created a method that said like validate funds or something.
Okay.
And then in that method, I put, I started with it saying, the argument was like funds equals initial balance or something.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to apply it even when I initialized the class.
Yep.
You get the idea?
Yeah, I know what you're going for. Yeah.
So,
I might not do that for this one, just because it might be too much. So we'll just do this. How's that? I'm gonna do it so that you can actually read it. So if the balance minus the amount to withdraw is less than 0, I'm gonna raise the argument. You do not have enough money, and then just return the original balance. Otherwise, I'm going to say the balance is going to equal that minus the amount to withdraw, and we're good to go. Let's see if this works. So I have a bank account. It has $500 in it, and I'm going to say b.withdraw $1,000. If all goes well, I'm going to get an argument that says you do not have enough money, and it's going to return me the balance out to the screen. You do not have enough money, but it doesn't print out anything. So it turns out when you raise an error, it's going to blow up at this particular line, and then nothing else matters. It's just going to do nothing. So it doesn't hit this. It doesn't hit anything else that you'll tell it to do. There's this one small concept called rescue. So whenever an argument error is raised, I can rescue it and then do something else. So once it blows up, instead of just blowing it up to the screen and stopping everything else, it can execute some other code. So I'm just going to do balance. I think this should work. Let's find out. Ruby bank, rescue, expected keyword end. Did I mess something up? If rescue end. I think that actually is correct. I'm not positive. Let's Google it. It's been a while. Raise, rescue, Ruby. I'm sure it's just a small syntactical thing. Oh, it's a begin. Whoops, my bad. Begin, rescue, end. I forgot the begin in the front. Begin. Raise this error. If the balance is less than 0, I'm going to rescue it, return the balance, and then end. If this doesn't blow up, then I'm just going to return balance equals amount to withdraw. Ruby bank, God, I think it's just E. Undefined method minus for nil class. Whoops, all of these balances are incorrect. At balance and then at balance. Please work. All right, I think that's correct. Negative 500. Okay. Should output a warning message and return the. All right, I'm going to go back. Sorry, I'm going to go back quite a bit, just because I think I might have gone too far. Confused everybody. Okay, so we're back to the beginning, right over here. I'm going to type it out real quick. It's what I'm going to do is just say if balance minus amount to withdraw is less than 0, return you do not have enough money. Else that. Don't worry about the raising of the errors or anything like that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to check if the money that you have minus the amount that you have to withdraw is less than 0. I'm going to say you don't have enough money and then not do anything else. So that's what this return is doing here. So I've got a bank account, and I'm just going to say PB.withdraw $10. See what we get. You do not have enough money, and it stops. So after that, I'm also just going to print out B.balance, and that balance should remain the initial 5. It should not be negative 5. And there's that 5 right over there. People want to take a quick break? Yeah, let's take a quick break. 10 minutes, 11:25, and we'll be back. All right, let's review where we've come from. All right, so they gave us a bunch of requirements, which is usually what business people would do. I want something that does this. So we have a module bank. Inside of there's something called an account. Account on its own is kind of ambiguous, right? It could be a checking account, savings account, CD account, a retirement account, health savings account, insurance account. Like, you don't know what account really means. But because they've nested it under the module of bank, when I call a new account, I will do bank : account. There's no debating what this is at this point. It's a bank account. It's just an account that's nested underneath the bank. This particular account gives, when you first read it, when you first create it, there's an account number, and then there's an initial balance. I'm going to blow up and just say, like, I'm not going to let you continue. I can't let you do anything else. You must provide a positive balance if your initial balance is less than 0. I can't create an account with negative 20 bucks. Set my account, set my balance equal to that initial balance. This is something that's going to be changed over time. I've got 2 very basic methods. I have a withdraw and a deposit. Deposit's fairly simple. I give you an amount, you add it onto the balance, we're all good. I put the @ sign in the front here because within a class, in order to write to it, you need to have the @ in the front. When you do it outside of the class and you just say, like, if I just did B equals B.balance equals 50,000, I can write it. The accessor is for the outside. Inside, you're still going to need the @ symbol in the front. If I withdraw money, if the balance is less than 0, like if I have 500 bucks and I'm taking out 1,000, I'm going to say you don't have enough money, and I'm going to return the balance. I'm not going to let you do anything else. I'm not going to update anything. I'm just returning that back out. Otherwise, I'm going to subtract the amount you want to withdraw from the balance, and the balance will be updated accordingly. So we've done everything up to this point, and we're going to tackle this optional thing before tackling part 2. First thing, create an owner class that will store information about the people who own the accounts. They should have info like name and address and any other identifying information that an account owner would have. Add an account property to each account to track information about who owns the account. You can create the account with an owner, or you can create a method that will add the owner after the account's been already created. So we're going to create a class called owner. Do you want to put that inside the module? Do you want to put that outside the module? It's up to you.
Let's do that outside the module.
Good. I like that one. So I like class owner. And the reason that I like that is because if I put the owner within the account, then I just do bank owner. And that's kind of like, are you talking about like the CEO of Chase, or are you talking about something else? So I just have a regular class called owner. they said we're going to add in certain things. And if you look a little bit further down, a bank owner has these particular things inside of here. As an ID, a last name, first name, street address, and state. Def initialize. And because I have all these things in a row, if I mix up things, like first name usually comes before last name, but they want last name first and things of that nature. And if you take a look inside the support, the account owners right over here, it does have that last name first and then the first name and then so on and so forth. Not a real big fan of this, so I'm just going to create an owner hash. So that I don't have to reliably wait on, like, the first thing is always the ID, the next thing is always the last name, the next thing is always the first name, because then you can flip things around way too easily. So I'm going to say @ID equals owner hash ID, and then I'm going to do this a whole bunch of times. I'm going to do last name, first name, oops, my mistake, street address, city, and state. Let's see what else they want us to do. So it says, create an owner class, which will store information about those who own the accounts, which we already did. Add an owner property to each account to track the information about who owns it. You can create an account with an owner, or you can create a method that will add the owner afterwards. So I have an account. It's got a number, initial balance, and then an owner. If I don't have an owner, what should I do?
Integer or nil.
Nil's probably better. So I'm going to set the owner just to equal nothing. And then I'm going to make, I can basically assign an owner afterwards. So maybe we'll create a method called def assign owner. Takes in an owner object, and then we can just do @owner equals owner. And it looks like I'm going to make that probably a accessor as well. Make sense? Kind of? Created my owner. The owner's got a lot of information, and because there's things coming in a specific order, I don't really like that. So I'm going to make it an owner hash, so that I'm looking at based off of ID. It doesn't matter if you mix up different things, because I'm looking based off the ID rather than the order of a specific thing. Next, I've got this, I've added this owner here. When you create your account, if you don't have an owner, I'm going to set it to nil, and that's fine. And then afterwards, I'm going to assign the owner to somebody else. So let's just say owner equals owner dot, oh God, I don't want to do this right now. Actually, might as well. So I'm creating an owner. I'm creating a bank account. The bank account's not going to have an owner to start with. I'm going to withdraw, like, say, $3 or something like that, and I'm going to assign b.assign owner with me. So I've created an owner, just a regular object over here that we see. I've created a bank account, and the third argument I'm expecting is the owner, but I didn't pass anybody in. So when I print this, I expect to see that this is going to show me nil. Once I assign the owner to be me, my owner is going to be my particular object. So when I run this, At first it was nil, and then when I assigned the owner, it became me, this particular object inside of memory. I can also do the same thing by just passing O as the owner, and then these things don't matter. The owner is going to be this particular person right here. All right, part number 2. So learning goals for this one is we're going to create and use class methods, which we didn't talk a terribly large amount about, which we'll talk about right now, and then using a CSV for loading data. So we're going to update the account class to be able to handle all the fields from the CSV file used as input. Okay? For example, manually choose the data from the first line of the CSV file and ensure you can create a new instance of that account using that data. All right, so it looks like if we take a look inside of accounts, what is inside of here? Let's take a look. Inside the account, I have an ID, a balance, and an open date. So it looks like I have an ID, a balance, and then an open date. Like the ID of the bank account. Sorry. The balance of the bank account. Wow, this person's got a lot of money. And a date of a bank account. So when you take a look over here inside of our account right here, looks like we have an account number, an initial balance, and then it also looks like we need to take care of the date that it was opened. Date opened, and then probably the fourth thing that we're going to be passing in is going to be that owner. We're starting to get to that point where it's a little bit crowded. So do you want to make this into a hash, or do you just want to pass it in as a series of 4 arguments?
I think hash.
Probably a hash.
Yeah.
It's okay, you can go either way if you like. So I'm just going to do account hash.
Is there, when you do that, like, is it possible to just use dot notation?
No.
Am I reading that wrong?
Inside of Ruby, you can't do dot notation on a hash inside of JavaScript. So it looks like I'm going to be reading a bunch of stuff from accounts.csv. It looks like I have an account number, an initial balance, the total, like the date that it was open, and then probably some sort of optional owner thing. It could also just equal nothing. So does anybody remember off the top of their head how to actually initialize a, how to read a CSV file one line at a time?
Oh, one line at a time?
Yep.
No idea. I know it's going to be CSV.read.
It's gonna be
like string or something.
there. I heard it over here. Somebody said for each CSV for each Ruby.
Oh, yeah.
For each looks like I can read one line at a time. Okay, so we can figure it out. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but we'll just copy and paste this code for right now. So CSV for each path to file. So I'm right here. I need to get to this. I believe it's called accounts.csv. Accounts.csv. And using that information, let's just put a binding parameter. What's that?
That's in support.
Yeah, you're right. I'm in the wrong place. So support/accounts.csv. So if I close this, you can kind of see I'm here. I'm at bank. The support folder is at the same level, but I need to go down one level to get to accounts.csv. Throw a pry at the very top, and we'll just see what happens. Take a look at what row looks like. So we're stuck. God, uninitialized constant CSV. Oh, whoops, uninitialized constant CSV. Looks like I need to require CSV at the top too. When I take a look at row, it looks like I have 1212, 12345, whatever amount that they have, and then the date that it was opened. So I've got those three pieces of information. It looks like my particular bank account, because we decided to go in the hash direction, is actually not going to work terribly well, because I have to create that array back into a hash, which unfortunately we're going to have to do because we decided to go with this particular data structure. So it's not terribly difficult. So we just do account hash equals, and then we just go basically one by one. The account number is going to equal row 0. The initial balance will be row 1. The date opened will be row 2. And now I think I can actually just do account.new account hash. Maybe I'll do accounts. And I'll put a pry at the very end. So I have an empty array full of I have an empty array of accounts. I'm iterating over each one of these accounts that already exist, taking all their information, making it into a hash, and shoving that into a new object. That object goes inside the accounts array. If all goes well, date open. Did I forget a comma somewhere? Yep. Comma, comma. All right. Uninitialized constant account. What is broken? I thought I did this correctly.
Is it because of that? It's inside the module.
It's inside the module.
You have to do bank colon.
Yep. There we go. So just one by one, we're going to fix this. Initial balance for bank account is broken. Initial balance, initial balance, initial balance. Did I spell it wrong? Let me go back and read the error message more carefully. Uninitialized variable or local method, initial balance for this particular thing. Initial balance.
Oh,
Is it because you can't read it?
Yeah, we can put it as an accessor or the reader.
I disagree with that, but let's find out. I'm going to put a binding pry right here. It's still broken. Oh my God. Initial balance for bank account. I don't even know what line is broken on. Line 56.
Comparison.
What's that?
Isn't it the comparison at the beginning? When you got to the top? Initialize. That initial balance not defined.
Yeah.
Oh, you are correct. Nice catch. Stupid. Okay. All right. Oh my God. Comparison of a string. Okay. So it looks like we're comparing. We need to turn this to a number. Finally, we're at the end. Okay. So when we take a look at the side of accounts now, we have, before it was an empty array, and now it's full of bank account objects. Each one has a different number, a different balance, a date opened, and so on and so forth. Every single one of them right now does not have any sort of owner. Now, I probably want to change the account number to an actual number, and same thing with the balance, because right now it's just a string. But you can kind of see, like, I'm using the CSV full of data, I'm creating different objects, and then from there I can just save it inside of the database. We'll learn that next week. Is this helpful? Should I keep going, or are people done?
It's very good. I think we should keep going.
Okay. I'm going to do date.parse. And I think we're going to... All right, let's take a look at accounts now. So now every single account, before it was a string, the account number is going to be just an actual integer. The amount of money that they have is going to be an actual integer. And the date open, before it was just a string that looked like this. And it's fine to have a string like that, but it's not as easy to do things to. You can do things with the date library that you can like add dates and remove dates and things like that. This just makes it a little bit easier to deal with. So I think everything works as we expect. I'm going to have a hard stop in about 10 minutes. All right. So we just did this first one. The second one is return a class method to your existing account class. So there are instance methods. This is one thing we haven't learned yet. There are instance methods. So every single instance, so every single new bank account has the ability to withdraw and deposit money. At the class level, it goes one level up. So there's methods that are available to not every single instance of a class, but like you can ask the entire class account to return all of the specific instances that it has. So that's what we've got here. Self.all, self means like the class account itself, not account.new, but the actual account. Returns a collection of account instances representing all of the accounts described in the CSV. See below for the CSV file specifications, and then you can do the ability to find. This is stupid, I'm not going to do this. Actually, we might as well. All right, so self.all and self.find. John, did you get this far with the self.all?
Yes.
Okay, I don't understand what it's saying, so can you tell me what to do?
Basically, it just wants you to call the class method from somewhere outside of the module and be able to return all the instances of accounts. So it's just.
Oh, so you're saying that when I call like bank account dot all, it gives me all the instances.
It'll just repeat it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. What did you write for the method? I can just find it. Hold on.
It's at the bottom there, self.all.
Temporary. Oh, so you just.
I just.
All the code that I did down here is
Yeah,
just.
put in
All right, that's fine. That's easy. That's easy. I got you. All right. So there are instance methods. Instance methods look a little something like this, like person.new. When I create a new person, they can do different things, like person.new with John and 1, 2, 3 or whatever, and then that particular person can do stuff. But you can see it's still attached to the instance of person, the .new. But every single person has the ability to do something, like person dot that's a class method. Every single the entire that's not right. This is a bad example. Okay, bank account dot new. It's a checking account, has a number of 1, 2, 3, and they have a balance of $1,000. Inside of here, they have things like withdraw, deposit, and assign owner. Those are things that each individual instance, each individual bank account can do. On the very high level, there are bank account without the .new, and I can just do .all. These are called class methods. They exist at the class level. They don't need the information specific to one particular bank account. They go to the entire class. So when I do bank account.all, what I did here, I created an accounts array. I'm iterating over each one of the accounts inside of here, and I'm going to just return that back out. And I think that's what I got here. So when I run account.all, let's see what we get. Should look exactly the same as what I saw before. So there's that array that we saw a little bit earlier with all the different accounts that we read. All right, last thing, and then we will take a break for lunch.
Well, can I ask her a question
Sure.
really quick? So I know Alex yesterday was telling me that the self that the self pretty much it takes away the new.
Yes.
So why wouldn't I just always just use self? So that way I don't have to do .new.
Because then you can never save anything to the database because you don't have individual things anymore. So when I do, like when I say like account.all, it should say like give me all the individual instances of the account. So if like the account is like the master class, it's kind of like imagine if you had like, this is a bad example. Imagine you had like one grandparent who like when you said like, let's say that the first person on earth was your grandparent, right? And then everyone else on earth came as a result of having different instances. The highest level, you can ask that person, and let's just say your grandparent is God for a second, right? And God has the ability to just say like, when you say like, give me all of humanity, they can bring out each individual instance of a person. Each individual instance of a person does not have the same ability to go up all the way to the top level and say like, I will tell you every person that's ever existed. Only the class, the thing that was created from, can tell you all of that. John?
Just before you move on, is there any way you can just review like when you pass in a hash as a default argument in order to then accept the various pieces that you pass in later?
Sure.
Can I just see that really quick?
Yeah. So the hash when you pass in a hash, it's in place of taking things and listing it out in like 5 or 10 things in a row because there's too much room for error. You could switch up first and last name. You could switch up email and birth date or something like that, and then that would actually feed into your database. Because you don't want to worry about specific order, you can pass in a hash. Because the hash always has specific keys, your information is always going to be reliable at that particular point. It doesn't matter if you put first name last or first, but it's because it's differentiated by key, you're going to be able to find everything that you want. All right, I really want to get to this, and then we'll stop. This last one is called self.find. I'm going to, let's say if I pass in an ID of record 1216, I want to see how much money this person has and when they opened their account and all that other information. I want to basically read everything and then look for this particular thing where look for this particular record. So I'm going to just put a binding pry right here. I'm going to find the person with the ID of 1216. I'm going to end up right over here. So I'm here, and I have I have all of the, if I do self.all, I've got all of these bank accounts. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to iterate over each one of these at this point, and then find the one where the ID is equal to the ID passed in. So if I have self.all.each do account, actually I think I could just do select account, where the account, I believe, account number is equal to ID.2i. And I think that's it. So it's kind of like finding the needle in the haystack. You could either kind of like read through each individual one of these files, each individual one of these rows, and then find the first thing and then be able to like return that one. But because I have this self.all method and it's full of objects that look like this, I'm going to iterate over each one of them and find the exact object where the account number is equal to the one that I put in. So if I run this one more time, I can kind of see there's that I'm returning that particular one. So it has an account number of 1216, the balance of 100,022, and this particular date that it was open. All right, I'll stop recording here.